On today's episode of The Spirit of Independence, we talk to Rob Neviit. A lot of people know Rob as the director of Celluloid Screams Horror Festival in Sheffield. Rob started his career there making short horror films, some of which we're going to look at today. Screen and Screen Again. I first knew you, we finished university around the same time, and we kind of came together over a love of horror films. Did you find that's where your inspiration for filmmaking came from?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I started, I did my degree at Hallam University, which was entirely a theoretical degree. And I think it kind of came down to not really even thinking that making films was even an option. It's like films are something that you watched, you appreciated and you studied. Yeah. And then after that, I had a couple of years out working in various jobs, and I realised kind of then what I wanted to do. But in terms of where it came from, I think horror has always been, it's kind of in my blood really, and has continued to be. Because I think we met originally at a horror all-nighter, I believe.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
Or maybe, I don't think we actually met there either.
We didn't, no.
There was I think 3 separate groups of friends, all of whom now know each other really well, all were there independently, not knowing each other, which I think is a nice kind of meeting of minds really, without really knowing that it's happening. Yeah,
exactly, yeah. And we've got the infamous story of somebody throwing up in a screening of Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, that was right behind me, the row behind me, actually. That was pleasant.
Yeah. And sort of, after I first saw your work, and I still think to this day it's one of the best student films I've seen, is Dead in the West, which I know you went out to some locations. Was it out in Italy or Spain to shoot where sort of Sergio Leone used to shoot?
Yeah, that's right. We shot, we did a week at the American Adventure theme park before it sadly closed down. It was actually the day that it closed for the season, which would be the 1st of November. We were given it for a week for free, which is amazing. So we had the whole western town set, and then a week later we flew out to Almeria, and where a lot of the Leone spaghetti westerns were filmed. In fact, in the film, the town when the main character walks across the kind of vista and he stands looking down on the town that he's eventually going back to, that is the town from For a Few Dollars More, which is it's great to steal that as a shot.
I thought it was quite an ambitious project for a student film, and the fact that you showed that dedication of going out there to shoot. Did you find that you'd learn a lot by throwing yourself into a big project like that?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I kind of came together with the director Deborah Beach, who produced and directed the film. I wrote the script and did the cinematography. We shot it on Super 16, so that was another challenge. It's the first and last time I've shot on film as well. But I think it was a luxury that I realised that we had to go into a project and kind of work on it and just throw everything into it, because you don't always get that opportunity, especially working on film. As I say, I've never had the resources to shoot on film since, and we had to, when film was still around, much more than it is now. We had a lot of kind of disagreements really from the tutors, where we had to justify why it should be on film, and we went and shot tests and in various aspect ratios and stuff, and basically said, yeah, this has to be on film. Yeah.
The next films that you made yourself under Spectral Films, Fragile, Harvest, one kind of thing that I picked up, and I guess Dead in the West to an extent as well, they're all focused on this one individual, this one character in a predicament. Is that a theme that you kind of gravitated to, choosing that sort of scenario?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's 2 sides to it really. There's the practical side, when in that, you know, having a single kind of individual cast member is kind of arguably easier to work with than having a huge ensemble cast. But as kind of thematically, I'm kind of drawn to it as well, really. I like the idea of an individual who hasn't really got a frame of reference either. So, like, if you're in isolation in a situation, and you're faced with something, be it supernatural or otherworldly or whatever, you know, you end up kind of making your own decision on how to react to that. So yeah, I've always kind of liked the idea of the individual in peril.
Yeah, and I think it becomes almost more relatable to the individual watching it, because normally if you're watching a film, you kind of taking it in yourself and you're processing it yourself, and you're not thinking about it in a group. And I think that sort of idea about focusing on one individual is perhaps looking at trying to tap into an individual's fears. Sometimes that's how I see it. But I think sort of you set them around a scenario, and I can see certainly in Harvest you concentrated on the locations quite a bit. Is that something that you thought about? I need to get a location that's going to envelop this world.
Yeah, I mean, with Harvest, I mean, Fragile was filmed very kind of contained almost. We filmed a lot of it in the scenes in the lift were filmed in the Odeon cinema where I worked at the time. We went in at 5 o'clock in the morning and filmed from 5 until like 9 when people started to come in and started to be concerned why we were kind of having all kind of filming equipment sort of strewn around the cinema. But with Harvest, I think it was as much about, I wanted that one to be a step up. So that one was shot, albeit kind of fakely. We shot it as a 2:35:1 kind of cinema scope and really used the frame. And but with the location, it kind of came about quite fortuitously, really. It's sort of, it's right next to my sister's house. She lives in Staffordshire, and the house that we used is literally her next door neighbour who said, yeah, I'll let you have the house, I'll move out for a week.
All right.
Which is what happened, and we stayed there, and it all kind of fell into place really nicely, to be honest.
Did you find that again, and the way I've always approached filmmaking is that each film you do is the next step in your learning? Is that how you were kind of seeing things at that time?
I think at the time, you look back on things and you kind of think, I can't imagine what I was thinking at the time, not in a negative way, but you sort of take things one step at a time. You're feeling your way through it, I think. Because I look back now and I think, particularly on the way that I approached it, was I didn't really know any different. So I just kind of went for it.
With Mortified, which I think we both produced a film for the same competition, for the Horror Channel Cut competition. With Mortified, you actually went on and took it an extra step further after entering the competition. You took it to quite a few festivals and you had quite a lot of success with it. What was kind of the secret with that film? I
think the secret with that one is it's really short, and you know, being 2.5 minutes long, it's a setup and a punchline, and I think that works really well if you like the joke, obviously. Because sometimes I'll show it to people and they'll really kind of get it, and then others will, you know, I for a while I've done some teaching and I've showed it to students, and some really get it and some are just kind of like bewildered by it. But I think having a short that is short rather than 15-20 minutes long, it really helps. And it was by far the most successful at the time. It did Fantasia in Montreal, which is an incredible festival to get into, and you know, I was really pleased to get into that. it sold to some territories as well. It sold to TV networks, I think, in Italy. It sold to Universal, and in Hungary, of all places, I think it sold to HBO in Hungary, so one of the Eastern European kind of branches of HBO. So again, it's what I like to think of it is the strength of the idea without kind of really blowing my own trumpet. It's an idea that works, and I think that's why it did well.
Yeah. Is there a set approach you have then when you're entering these festivals? Is there something that you look for as part of your application to put in to kind of get that hook in initially? Or do you just rely on the strength of the film?
I think it has to rely on the strength of the film. I mean, there's certain things that you would do. I remember reading from, I think it was Guerrilla Filmmaker, Chris Jones' website, where he was recommending sending, with every festival submission, sending a handwritten post-it note on the top of the case or on the disc. Which I started to do, and again, that means nothing if the film isn't very good. But I think that's a personal touch. If you're addressing it to either to a person or specifically to that festival, I think that does help because it shows you've actually cared about who you're sending it to. Yeah. So I think that's helpful, really. Yeah.
And then, sort of later on, I know you kind of took a slight break from filmmaking. You came back with Metamorphosis again. What I think is an ambitious project, but one that paid off really well. A sort of single shot GoPro film that was done realistically in one take. Was it one take?
It wasn't one take. No,
okay.
No. It was if there are some sneaky cuts in there. It was it's an uninterrupted take for about the first minute, I think, which was hard. It was hard going because it involved a dialogue scene at the beginning. And then the camera, which obviously was attached to the operator, it ran into that, and then it lasted about a minute. But it took us a good 6 hours to get that right.
Yeah.
But then, there's about 4 cuts in it altogether, and if you look carefully, you spot them.
I remember at one of the Celluloid Screams festivals that you run in the year, and you show Nightbreed, which is a personal favourite of mine. You had Nicholas Bin and Vince there, who was in Metamorphosis. How did you end up getting him to star in it?
The way I've kind of always approached because as you say, I run Celluloid Screams. I have done since 2009, and that kind of explains the gap as well between Mortified in 2008 and Metamorphosis in 2013. I was busy running a festival for 6 years, so it was kind of, or however many years that works out as. But yeah, with Nick, him and Simon Bamford, who played Butterball in Hellraiser and was also in Nightbreed too, they came along for the Cabal cut of Nightbreed, and I just kind of got to know them through that. Really, it's been my dream, and I still want to put Simon in a film as well, or maybe both of them, or all of the Cenobites together in non-Cenobite roles. I think that would be really fun. But yeah, it kind of came about just pretty easily, to be honest, because I was in touch with them directly because they came to the festival and they had a good time, and they could see that hopefully that was somebody that was worth working with, and and Nick's been great, and we're hopefully going to be working on something new as well. So good. And actually, whilst we're talking about the festival, it's been running for, I'd say, 6-7 years now. 2015 will be the 7th one. 7th year. How did you actually get something like a horror film festival off the ground? It's a challenge. Basically, the first one in 2008, I started doing individual screenings. I did a run of 6 weeks of screenings, which were kind of an introduction to horror, because the showroom did horror, obviously, because it's an independent cinema, but they didn't do it as a regular strand as such. So I was like, there's lots of great stuff out there, let's do something. And the guy who was in charge at the time, Bill Lawrence, kind of took a chance on it, really. We did that 6-week run. It did really well. We then did a double bill of An American Werewolf in London and The Thing on Halloween 2008. That sold out. So they were like, well, yeah, maybe next year we should start, looking at actually doing it as a proper festival. And it kind of went from there. And then since then, I kind of took it on and made it what it is, really.
Welcome to Celluloid Screams 2012. For those of you who are in for the long haul, for all 3 days, you were in for one hell of a journey. We've got some of those twisted, screwed up stuff you were ever going to see.
With the festival, what's the sort of process involved to actually start picking the films that you want to show?
The programming side normally starts
the day after?
The day after, pretty much, yeah. I mean, in a way, you can't start too early, because if you start in November for the following October, the chances are that the films that you're looking at will probably be out by the time that time comes around. But this year, I mean, we started looking at films, and we opened submissions on February the 14th. We did a free, because it's a charging for submissions thing, because that's the way festivals generally work. It's kind of it's just to cover the cost of it, really. But we opened on the 14th of February, and it kind of started from there, really. And we've had the most submissions so far that we've had by this point in previous years. So it's going from strength to strength. But the process really is kind of looking at everything. I still watch everything that comes in, because I can't really it's my reputation as a programmer and as a festival director, to kind of have that on my head, really. So it's like, if there's films that I either haven't seen, or it doesn't really work, so I need to have seen everything to say this is right for the festival, because I've always approached it from that as a fan and as an audience member of going to stuff like this before. That it's the kind of weekend that I would want to go to myself. So that's the way I've always approached it.
Yeah, which I think is right, and I think festivals will lose touch if they start thinking of it as more of a commercial aspect. But I think what's good is you've also had some good guests there as well. Ian McCulloch, personal favourite. How do you think about getting a guest? Is it something that you think, I want to get him this year, or is it, right, this film will sit well, so I'll try and get this person in?
It's a mixture, really. I mean, we've tried to get some guests who, for one reason or another, aren't interested in doing festivals, and it's always a bit of a challenge. But I've kind of got a bit of a wish list, and I'm gradually ticking people off, because obviously, as you say, we've had Ian McCulloch, we had Catriona McCall, which was a huge kind of personal triumph for me, and she was an absolute delight as well. She was lovely to have around. Obviously, we've had Brian Usner, we've had Frank Henenlotter, and then with newer films, we've had people like Ben Wheatley, Astron 6, and Moorhead and Benson, who did Spring and Resolution, who are kind of like part of the family now. These guys can come back whenever, I don't mind.
So if I'm a young guy out there and perhaps I want to set my own festival up, what's the best sort of advice that you can give somebody?
I think the best advice, if you were looking to set up your own festival, is have an idea of what you want it to be, make it about that, and try not to deviate from that. Have a plan of the kind of event that you would want to go to, or that is in the particular genre that you're interested in, or particular type of films, and just go for it, really. Contact venues, see if you can get somebody to take a shot at it, and hopefully it'll be a success.
And don't do it in Sheffield.
And don't do it in Sheffield, because I will find you and I'll kill you.